The very idea of Atlantis, I think, is so frightening to mainstream academic researchers simply for the reason that they could easily wind up looking like fools, right? There's the risk reward is not there for them, right? If I go and try and do something about this, people are going to laugh at me. What if I don't get tenure? I'm not going to get to publish my next book.
There are a few subjects like that or topics like that.
Absolutely.
This is one of them.
This is one of them. And so I think what's so interesting is that keeps a lot of first-class minds from seriously addressing what this subject is really about. And I think Sarantitis is a first-class mind. He's a guy who was trained as an engineer. He studied ancient Greek growing up. He is Greek. And he's an extremely intelligent, capable person who his hobby was classics and Plato and philosophy. And I think for George, basically in a nutshell, he kind of refused to believe that this was all just a nonsense fairy tale.
Yeah.
So, the main thing that George realized when he was going through this and he started reading through the different, some different translations versus the original ancient Greek, is that it said, Atlantic Ocean, blah, blah, blah. And he looked and said, wait a minute, that's not what this says. In the ancient Greek, it says to get to Atlantis, basically from Greece, you have to cross a body of water called an Atlantic Pelagos. And a pelagos, for people who don't speak Greek, is still the word used by modern Greeks to refer to seas like the Aegean or the Ionian Sea, or maybe the Adriatic.
Right, they call it Pelagos, on something.
Yeah, so the Aegean Pelagos, the Ionian Pelagos, right? That's the word for a sea, and it's a sea partially enclosed by land and islands, right? And you have to remember, who are these people? Well, the Greeks were massive maritime traders and, raiders and colonizers, right? The sea was very important to their way of life. Okeanos was what was referred to as what the Greeks referred to as the great river or the great body of water that surrounded the known world.
Word also did exist in the language.
Yeah, Okeanos, exactly.
Yeah.
And their world was Europe, Asia, and Africa.
Right, but they understood that there was an Okeanos somewhere out there.
They knew, well, because a lot of people say, well, they didn't, they hadn't been outside the Mediterranean stuff. It's nonsense. People knew. People knew that the world extended further.
If you look at the ancient Greek maps, for instance.
Yeah. And the Carthaginians, who were a contemporary society, had sailed both. They had
contact with India.
Sailed in Northern Europe. They'd sailed down the coast of Africa. They'd been out in the Atlantic Ocean. They weren't blind, right? So anyway, that's a little bit of a background about how Sarantitis got started.
George.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit like somebody suddenly tells you Paris isn't in France, and you say, "Well, that's news to me."
Yeah.
What else is different? So, and he's reading high quality translations which were otherwise very good, but they had made an assumption. Why? Nobody had ever heard of an Atlantic Pelagos before. Where is that? I don't know. Do you? Nobody knew. George didn't know. No one ever heard of that before. Everyone knew about the Atlantic Ocean. So basically what happened is, and it's almost unbelievable, everybody and their brother who translated this assumed Plato had been talking about the Atlantic Ocean. And that's not what it says. Period.
Fascinating.
So remember we talked about the Atlantic Pelagos, this big inland sea, that in Plato's era had sort of dried up and was no longer really truly navigable by big ships, but had been navigable in 9,600 BC. That such a place exists in modern Tunisia and Algeria. today there's these series of salt lakes called shots.
Yeah,
and
I know about those. I've been to Tunisia. I know there's a salt lake or several.
Many of
in
them,
the south of Tunisia,
which are quite large, and you can see, anybody can see that there used to be a bigger body of water there, right? Because in the dry season, they kind of dry up, and you'll see these photos. If you Google it, you'll see ships or even like kind of rowboats just kind of beached, like sitting, but you can see the lake bed extends out for, tens of kilometers. Those salt lakes used to be connected.
I see.
And if you go back 11,600 years ago to the era, the 9600 BCE, there was an enormous, what's called a paleo lake there. And it was called the Shots Mega Lake. There's your Atlantic Pelagos.
So there's evidence or indications that there was a Pelagos, but there is no evidence for pillars, the two pillars?
Nobody has ever found a physical plaque or a column or anything that looks like pillars there. So, but again,
doesn't mean that there haven't been.
Well, and there was where are those pillars in Strait of Gibraltar? Where are those plaques in between Sicily and Italy? They're gone. Either they never were there, or they were there and somebody just looted or destroyed them. Not like that's uncommon with stuff from the ancient world, right?
Yeah.
So George. So basically, boom! All of a sudden, George has a real massive sea that really existed, and also the whole climate. Many people might not know this. The whole climate of Northern Africa
was rainy back then. Yeah,
was green. It's called the Green Sahara. Non-controversial.
They know about this today, and it's. I mean, there's an inertia in the school system, but people who are looking into this, they know.
Yeah, and when I set out to make this film, the Atlantis Puzzle, I went and fact-checked a lot of Sarantitis' assumptions because I don't want to look like a dope, And I've probably read 50 to 75 scientific papers just about the Green Sahara and mega lakes of Northern Africa.
Yeah.
It's real. They were definitely there. The climate was completely different. By the way, as the Sahara dried up, so it was wet from, call it, 10,000 BCE, all the way down to maybe, in different places, it's
5,000 BCE, I think.
Maybe around 4,000 BCE. And that is why a lot of people attribute the beginnings of pharaonic culture in the Nile Valley. People were running out of water. Everybody was coming together around the Nile. Yeah. And you had this formation of this mega state for those days, right? So anyway, Sarantitis now has his smoking gun. There was a sea there. It was open to the Mediterranean. You could have sailed into it. And now all of a sudden it dawns on him, Atlantis is a place that borders the Atlantic Ocean, contains the Atlas Mountains, and contained a people that Herodotus once referred to as the Atalantes. How crazy is it really to think that it might have been called Atlantis in prehistoric times? I mean, that's not a huge leap, right? So he said, oh my gosh, it's West Africa. It's been hiding in plain sight, and we've just missed it.
Hello, my friends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to hit that like button and share the video with your friends. Please support the channel if you can. I appreciate all the support. You can become a Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or you can make a one-off donation via PayPal if you wish. All the links are in the description box below. Thank you.